Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, welcome to another edition of Man Cave Monday. And as always, thank you for connecting. Thank you for watching. I hope that all is well in your world, wherever you are, wherever you're watching from. It's a good day to be alive, and I'm so fortunate and so privileged to be able to come to you again in this format. And as always, we like to bring you different voices, different perspectives, different men from all walk of life. And you all have been so supportive of this platform. So before I introduce my guest, I want to invite you, of course, to comment, but also to share this interview, this experience, this conversation with someone, because I believe that this talk is going to be not only inspirational, but also very informative. And so I'm so excited tonight to welcome a brother who has such a presence in our local community. I've watched him from a distance for a number of years with his work here in Tallahassee. He is the president of the Tallahassee branch of the NAACP. He is Adner. Marcelin, sir, welcome to the Man Cave.
Welcome. Thank you, Pastor. I'm pleasure to be here tonight.
Absolutely. How are things going on your end?
This is especially with the election looming, this is probably one of the busiest seasons for us over at the NAACP. And I think, frankly, we share this along with all the other chapters and branches across the country. This is some very serious and concerning times, especially with government and ensuring that we're protecting civil rights of individuals as we near one of the most very critical elections of our time. And a lot is at stake. So we're very, very busy working every day.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you on behalf of all of us for the work that you do behind the scenes. People have no idea what all it takes, to keep something like this going, and the movement that you have been certainly a part of here in our fair city. And so, for the benefit of those that don't know you, kind of want to do, just a little bit of background, not a deep dive, but certainly a little bit of a background on you. Who is Adner Marcelin? Where are you from? I won't ask how old you are, but, you're fairly young, brother. I think you're younger than me. But tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever you want us to know.
I was telling people, I think I'm getting in the club now. We're having a little bit of back problems. So I think I'm getting a little bit in the age group, but to be seasoned, but we're working on that.
Yeah.
My name is Adner Marcelin. For those that don't know me, I'm originally from Stuart, Florida, on the Treasure Coast, a little bit of a retirement community. So to me, I know I get that question a lot. Why in the world would you stay in Tallahassee? And I tell everybody, hey, you come from where I come from. This feels like New York to me. So I'm good. I'm not trying to find anything bigger than this.
Yeah.
Tallahassee is a good American city, and it's very good for the business of law that we do. Professionally, I'm the law firm administrator for Ben Crump Law, formerly Parks and Crump Law Firm. We've handled some of the nation's most troubling cases when it comes down to police brutality, from Michael Brown to Trayvon Martin, and just vigilantes to Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and the list goes on and on and on. And in this time and day, it's just something that it's a pleasure to work with Attorney Crump, Daryl Parks here, staples in our Tallahassee community. They have trained me, and I think it's a good community, a good place to grow and learn. For myself, I came to Florida State University back in 2004. So that's kind of what drew me to Tallahassee. From Florida State. Ended up, while we were doing the Trayvon Martin case in Orlando, getting my master's degree from Florida Tech, and then going to law school at Western Michigan. University Law, and then coming back to Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Been around the block, different places in different cities, and Tallahassee feels like home. And so,
Yeah.
for at least the time being, I've been here.
So did you always know that you wanted to go into law, or was that something that you kind of discovered later on?
No, I didn't. I actually, and I still do have interest in politics and government. But I remember we got an invitation one day. We were joined the NAACP back at FSU, and one of my mentors, Louis Dilber, he said, "Hey, you need to come out to the NAACP," and he was the FSU NAACP president at the time. And he's like, "Yeah, you need to come out, join, and get involved." And I said, "Okay." I took him up on that offer, and that was the first meeting that I attended in college, and I've been a member ever since. Um, at that meeting, it was around the time that Martin Lee Anderson was killed at a boot
I
camp
remember that
here,
case. Yeah.
uh, way back when. I think it said to be in like early 2006 or late 2005, early 2006, and it was in Panama City. And we had to just get on buses and go out there and just protest that that was not right. And when they did not get it right over there, and we realized the level of corruption that we were against, we had to bring the fight right here to the state capitol, and to ensure that the value of a Black life really mattered, and that they understood that. And we've been fighting ever since. But I'm proud of the strides that we have made, and the NAACP was very critical in the development of civil rights. And when you see the amount of injustice, uh, you just you think you won't see it again. And then we were down in Sanford, Florida, marching for Trayvon Martin, and I know Ben Jealous, he's like, "Hey, you're doing all this work, but we need more people, in the field of law. Why don't you go to law school?" And I'm like, "Well, who's going to pay for it?" He's like, "Man, we got scholarships at the NAACP. Reach out."
Wow.
So reached out to him. He put me in contact with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Got the scholarship there, and then the next year I was in law school, finished up my master's, and did law
Wow.
school and came back. So it was a blessing because originally you're young, you want to party and do all the stuff that you were doing at the university, and I was just glad that somebody invited me to something, because it was that one door that opened all of the doors and kind of made the introductions that I
Yeah.
needed. And not only that, but provided the financial resources. So
Mm.
certainly glad I took up that invitation to become more civically engaged on campus, and that has led me this far in my career.
Certainly, and there's so much we want to dive into with the work and the service that you are rendering, to our community. I was just talking today, or rather on yesterday, in our service, about just the power of partnerships. When the Lord has sent you somewhere, He'll always send you the right people, to connect with. So it was no coincidence that you met Ben Jealous. It was no coincidence that he said to you, spoke into you, you need to go to law school. And money was the issue, but he's like, no, we got that. So just to hear you talk about just that one meeting that has opened up so many other doors for you, that is that's a man cave episode by itself. I'm
Yeah,
sure to talk about your
definitely.
personal journey towards where you are now. So being the president of this local chapter of NAACP, you are very well versed in the history, of the organization. And for someone even in my generation, I'm 41 years old. I can appreciate the history of SCLC, SNCC, NAACP, Rainbow Push Coalition, Urban League, um, um, and all the many others, right? So the question that I want to start, by asking you as we dive into the issues, what is the modern day relevance of an organization like yours? And I'll ask it in this vein. There are people who would question, how relevant the organizations still are. We don't see them. They don't do nothing. It's just all about money. And of course, they have no idea, what goes into keeping the organization afloat. But tell me, from your vantage point, what is the modern day relevance, of the NAACP? Is it still vital? And of course, I want you to tell us why.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you could spend all day on this one particular topic about the relevance of the NAACP, but I ask it in this way. When your civil rights are violated, who do you call? When you go to your job and you're discriminated against, who do you call? When you look at it from the perspective of the government that you're in, and they have tons of budget. Developments are going up left and right that are funded by your tax-paying dollars. I spoke during convocation at FAMU, and I asked a question that kind of upset people, but it's the truth. And that question was, if you look at FAMU and you look at Florida State University, both universities are state university funded schools. But when you look at the disproportion, when it comes down to the grants they get, and I tell people you have to be careful because discrimination can present itself in different ways. People are smarter now. They mask discrimination in different ways so that it looks legal until you actually have to challenge it. They set standards and accreditation standards that they know certain universities that are historically Black universities could not meet to begin with. And right. So when you have to challenge that, is the metrics that you're dividing money with the best method for you to do it and a fair method for you to do, share with it for. Yeah. In city government, when it comes down to development, I've always been a firm advocate that we have to press more for development within our South Side communities. There are no grocery stores on the South Side that are within walking distance.
They are all on market on Main Street does not count.
It doesn't, and that food, the food at Greenwise is very limited. It's very targeted health, and it's very expensive. And so again, your government has the ability to provide for the people. I cannot begin to tell you the amount of phone calls I get from residents. And I said, well, have you gone to a city commission meeting? Have you gone, to the blueprint meeting and presented these ideas? Because if we don't get out of our little comfort circle, it's there. And the NAACP, we pick up those mantles. Our job is to be a watchdog for the people, our constituents that we serve, which are the minorities. A lot of the progress that we have made. There was a time in the city of Tallahassee where the city was put under a consent decree several times for refusing to hire Blacks and give African-American promotion. It was the NAACP that filed those lawsuits in the late 80s, early 90s. So it wasn't that far back. Right. That would allow African-Americans, to get jobs. Even when we were discussing the qualifications, a lot of noise had to be made to hire the current city attorney that we had to say that she's qualified in the county. When we had somebody who was good enough to serve as deputy, but not good enough to serve as the actual county attorney, you have to stand up and say, hey, that's not right. That's not right. You have to stand up for a lot of issues, and that's what the NAACP does. I would dare ask, if the NAACP is not going to stand up for you, who will on a consistent basis? And one thing that I tell people, I'm sure you relate to this being a pastor, this is a volunteer position. A lot of people don't know that. The NAACP is operated by the work of 100% of volunteers. We operate in the community based on donations. And so you're talking about a volunteer gig in which you have to come in, conduct fundraising, and then we have a commercial building here too. So we have to maintain that as well. And there's maintenance costs and everything else that comes with running a building year round. People don't appreciate it, but we know what the purpose is and why we're here and why we're relevant. Because if you look just down the street at the Capitol, in which it's within our jurisdiction here, you look at the issues that we're dealing with local government, policing, gaining trust in our community, working with individuals. It's there. You want to say what's a common day relevance for the NAACP? If the NAACP did not go out into the protesters and say, what is the issue? Why are you guys out here on the streets? No one gave us the invitation. Right. And then we said, well, I know who can meet those needs. We'll just get the state attorney, the police officer, the police chief, the sheriff's office, and we put all them in a room. And that started the conversation that is now helping some of them work together. That was just an effort of the NAACP. We'd still be out there protesting today. And, I asked ourselves, what is the relevance? The relevance is that we are protecting the rights of individuals, even when individuals don't understand that their rights are being violated, their rights are being trampled, their rights are even in danger of being taken away. We serve as a watchdog to ensure that we are represented, that we're treated fairly as people, and that we serve to eliminate racial discrimination in any form right here within our county.
Wow. And I think you've articulated that brilliantly. I don't think anybody should leave this conversation not understanding, how relevant NAACP is. And, I see it as advocacy. On my end of leadership, we fight for those that God called the least of these, literally the hungry, the naked, the impoverished, those that cannot fight for themselves. But I'm sure you know this, that a lot of times the very people that you're fighting for sometimes end up fighting against you because they don't really understand, the ins and outs of what you have to do just to get certain things done. Yes, we want justice. Yes, we want things to change, but it must be an organized effort. Even I would dare say over an emotional effort, because we can emotionally get together and march down the street. But if there is no plan, if there is no ask, if there is no
Absolutely.
what next, then the movement still does not move forward beyond the march. And I think, that's where the generation before yours and mine kind of grew tired after 68. When Dr. King's life was taken, there rose up a more militant African American, and these were young people. And they said, you know what, we tired of marching, we tired of asking the white man for what we want. We just gonna burn everything down. We gonna demand it. But if there is no plan, if you don't have advocates who can help you organize, then you've really just participated in an emotional, momentary demonstration. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I agree. And I meet with local protesters. I'm on a first name basis with them. I tell you, one thing that makes me feel good is when you're in a room with city government leaders, county leaders, and state attorneys, and everybody says, I don't know anybody in this room, but I do know Adner. And that's because you make an effort. I think, and I challenge government leaders. I said, I'm very careful because I know if you're not mistaken, we can be considered as leaders in
Right,
the who's who circle.
right.
And what I've challenged them is to go outside of your comfort zone and go to a meeting. I laugh, sometimes because you hear rumors and it's you get used to it as a leader. You don't try not to respond to it. But
Yeah.
I've heard some of the craziest things. White people are not allowed in the NAACP. I said, well, that's strange because the NAACP was founded by white founders.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have white members who not are just members of the NAACP. We have one of the most diverse boards with whites and Hispanics and African American. There's law enforcement on our board. We
Mm-hmm.
all get together and don't have a problem because we sit down, we express our views, we see how we all see it, and we make the best decision for the NAACP. But there are individuals out there that will just go to one meeting that they went back in 1990s and say, oh, well, I thought the NAACP was this and haven't been to a meeting. And with every organization, with every institution, things have changed. There's been progress, there's been development in views, but the mission is the same. We're all fighting for the same mission to eliminate racial discrimination, hatred, provide better economic opportunities, to fight health disparities. Those are the missions of the NAACP. Those will never change. However, the way that we conduct business, the way that we run the association, that stuff has progressed and is changed
Yeah.
with time. And you find individuals who just won't be open to that. They have this stigma about the NAACP. And, I just say that, you have to treat everybody with kindness. I remember being cursed out by this gentleman. He put us in this thread when he was complaining about our police search here. And then I asked him, I said, well, have you ever came to an NAACP meeting? If not, I'd like to extend the invitation for you to join. He's like, oh, I thought whites weren't allowed. I said, no. He says, well, I'd like to apologize to you. This is after cursing me out, calling me out my name.
Yeah.
But,
And I
I
wonder, are
think
you
that
going to
you just,
apologize publicly like you showed out publicly? I don't want
you know,
no
I,
private apology, no
yeah,
text
you
message.
know,
No, show me
and for me,
how
I
much
try
you
to stay
mean it.
with the bigger goal. And, I just try to push the bigger goal. And that is, it's the same thing as like, being a true Christian. I tell people, giving the homeless something and taking that photo op is not the praise that you need. I had to go out there, nobody saw it, didn't get any recognition for it, but had tons of food left over, went out there right on Copeland Street near that park.
Right.
Where we have a lot of homeless community, made sure we closed the homeless, gave them food there. Not
Right.
a word spoken, no one saw it, not here for press and publicity. But you have to treat everybody as, that invitation when nobody's
Yeah.
looking. I think that
Yeah.
defines, who we want to be and what my character is. And my what I pledged to the people when I ran, because everybody asked me this. I said, you know what? There's been a lot of presidents. They all had the right to run the NAACP in the way that I did. But one of the things that I did is I promised my constituents that I would run the NAACP with an unbiased mind. I would not accept monetary compensation, sponsorships, and whatever pressures that would put out there in the decision making that I would eliminate that from this administration. And I
Yeah.
like to think that I've held true to that. I've also told people that I love my friends and family, that I would not do things to support just friends and family, but I would make the best decision for the people, because this is a position that has historical meaning and trust in this community. And so we would need to make those decisions there. And I also pledged to everybody that we would do it in a way where we made the board that was elected, the executive committee that was elected to govern the NAACP, I would let the decision making be done by them, because these are the individuals that our general membership placed in charge. And so
Right.
I don't, even though I don't think it would be right as the president to say, this is my decision. And I say the NAACP says. I tried to do
Right.
that. And I think that it has really turned the organization around for the better.
Well, here's what I think on that, and it's two things on this. First, I say as a general rule, whoever you are as a person, that's what you bring to a position. So you were raised with a certain level of integrity and your value system and just those things that you hold dear to your heart. So whatever position you get in, whether that be president or pastor or teacher or attorney or advocate, whatever position you're in, you're going to bring you with you. And so what you've brought to our local branch of the NAACP is, your spirit. It will rise or fall with, the vision and the energy, that you've put behind it. So, you can't say it, but I'll say it. Its relevance here in our city is because of your efforts. Because there are many organizations, and at the end of the day, people will buy into something because it's you. You can sell goldfish in a plastic bag on the corner of Orange Avenue. If it's you, I'm buying one because I believe in you, and I don't even want a goldfish. You see what I'm saying? It's your reputation, it's
Absolutely.
your leadership, it's the heart that people see. And no, this is the second thing. The cameras, will not always be present, and we don't need them present, right? People will never know all of what you do. However, I do believe that the cameras play a very vital role if we look at the history of the movement, because it was not until America saw the images of us being beat down, the images of dogs being sicked on us, the images of John Lewis and so many others being beat upside the head as they tried to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge. In a modern setting, we're talking about the image of a police officer's knee on George Floyd's neck. It's the image of so many others, whether it's cell phone video or news media captures. I believe the camera is important because otherwise folk won't see it. They'll deny that it's there. They will still deny the systemic nature of racism, in America. But when the cameras catch them, and of course I'm getting over into the police body cameras, when them cameras are on, as they were conveniently turned off in the Breonna Taylor case, that you guys are working so closely with. When those cameras are on, it captures injustice and it gives a visual to what we've been marching for 100 years.
Absolutely. And again, like I told our protesters in the meeting that I met with them, And I know the rumor mill is going to circulate, and
Yeah,
from
can't
this
do nothing
point,
about that.
you learn to move past that you can't worry about rumors, but we have to motivate our young people to understand that, you know, I told them, I said, aren't I asked the question, I said, aren't y'all tired of marching? We have been marching. Our ancestors have done that, and it worked. It was a very effective
Right.
tactic. But I think over time, law enforcement, our government leaders have become tone deaf. They have learned the tactics there. Now they know how to respond. So now in the protests, they know what's going to happen. They know once they catch someone there, they even do it in advance. They activate the National Guard. They implement a curfew. They know people are there. They arrest people. They trump it up with charges. But what I impart to our young people in this next generation is that you're not going to get much, very far with a criminal history. You're not going to get very far, when you're trying to apply for a job and they want to know why were you arrested on the side of the street. What we have to do is to start taking this marching and turning it into action. You are what I motivate them. I say you are qualified to hold the same position so that when the situation does happen, and we hope that it doesn't, you are the person sitting up on the dais making the decisions on how to run the city, how to respond, how to give justice to those individuals.
Yeah,
One
and
of the
let
other
me
things that
ask this in the vein of
go
what you're
ahead.
saying. By the time the marches happen, certain decisions have already been made.
Absolutely.
I've argued that, we always say proverbially, I want my seat at the table. I preached a sermon 2 years ago that says being at the table, is too late too. You need to be in the kitchen, because the
Yep.
kitchen is where the groceries get fixed and divvied up. We marching about, CRA dollars, or we'll argue and we'll protest about, how certain things. By the time we get to it, the groceries done already been divvied up and plates have already been
Yep.
fixed. As you highlighted the disparity between, Florida State and FAMU in terms of funding and support or what have you, I just believe that the why can be consistent, but the how, how we go about it, like you said, we have to evolve to different methods because we're not in the kitchen,
Right. And,
unfortunately.
and, and I would just say this, we have too many well educated, well experienced, and you can't beat experience. Experience will take, you can't beat experience. We have too many experienced elected officials. We have Curtis Richardson, Diane Williams Cox. We have Ramon Alexander, Andrew Gillum. We have
Yeah.
Anita Favors Thompson, who's been a city manager. These are the individuals where we have to create some sort of institute that are going to get with our folks who may not understand, all the logistics of how to run and hold office, and we need to begin to train them so that we have better candidates. I'm very disappointed when you're running in the election and you hear people that have been disheartened, and I think they say, oh well, I don't know who I would vote for, or I don't see somebody that I could support because we don't have many good choices. And I told them, I said, you know what, we're looking at the good choice. We're looking at you, but you're going to have to get ready. You're going to have to make that commitment. You're going to have to clean certain things up if you're going to run and hold office. And you're going to have the best representation of you, because I've learned from a long time that you can sit there and wait for the community to make those changes for you, wait for a leader to go up there and make the changes for you, but it doesn't come. And so certain things that you want to see change, certain visions that you have to have the faith and just go out there and run on that vision and
Yeah.
make the change. I think, like I said, someone said, well, what'd you do to the NAACP to change it? I said, nothing. I just got up there, picked up the mission, and
You
I
being
opened the door. I
you,
can't,
you brought
you just got
you
to
to
do
the
it. You just have
table.
to do it.
You brought Adner to
I
the
tell
table.
people,
Your skill set,
you
your energy, that's what you brought. And what's so disheartening about elected officials is that we don't see them, a good number of them. I can't blanketly say all of them, but we don't see them until it's election time. They
absolutely,
don't
absolutely.
engage with the community. If they don't know you in South City, and you represent that area, something's wrong. If you don't know those families, Tallahassee is not a big city. I know you see
It's
it as New York City, but I'm just saying by comparison, you only one person removed from everybody in Tallahassee. So if you're an
yes,
elected official and you don't come around these people, you don't engage them, where they are, then that's a problem. And elected
absolutely.
officials have got to do better, about staying engaged when there's no vote at stake. You know,
And
go
I've
ahead.
said this before. I know it's not the popular opinion, but I held our pastors responsible for this. And I said, stop letting people just come in during our churches during election
Yep.
season. We've
Yep.
got to stop that.
Yep.
You bring somebody in there that you don't know, that is very dangerous. Sometimes they have, promised you this and promised you that and given donation. Let's be real. We
Right.
already know what
Right.
this is all about.
Right.
And we should stop that, because at the end
Yep.
of the day, I told these individuals, when you're upset with a particular leader, go back to that same pastor that put that person in office and see what that pastor's reaction is going to be. Are
Yeah.
you going to be the one going down there and saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" And again, it's
I
not to
love
say
that.
that you wanna hold or make anybody do anything that is illegal, but what are you getting? I ask a lot of these candidates, like, if you get the Police Benevolence Association's endorsement, if you get the endorsement of the
What's the
firefighters, what did
kickback?
you promise them?
Right.
Because you got to be very cautious of our leaders that go in different sections of our community, and depending on which crowd you're in, it's there. We have leaders that think that we're just not educated, and they come to the NAACP and they talk about the black crime and the black community and development and stuff like that, and then go on the other side and promise that we're going to support sweeping legislation that is going to stop the protest and the looting and whatever. And it's like you're all over the place with your statements depending on who your
Yeah.
audience is. And so I just
Oh
told pastors,
man.
do yourselves a favor, do your congregation a favor. If this person is not a friend of the house, has not visited your service outside of
Right.
time of going to church, please stop giving them the pulpit. Yes, let them come to
Yo,
church. Everybody can come, but wave at them,
Adner.
say we're glad to have you in
Adner.
service, but we going home. I mean, I
Wait.
got to be real.
Adner. Okay.
And again,
Okay.
like I said, I know I'm not. I'm the most, probably the most unorthodox president, but I think that's why I'm also so controversial as well, because I just don't open the floor up and just let all of this foolishness come in there.
Well,
Because
I
at the end of the
don't
day, I
personally,
told
bro. I don't
I'll just say
personally
this and I'll end it,
believe.
Pastor. I'll just say this. I'll tell you
Go
this.
ahead.
I told these individuals, if you're running for office and you've been in the NAACP, and I'm not talking about those that send the financial check to be a member. We appreciate your finances, but your presence means more. If you've not been to a meeting and you knew of all the meetings there, please don't come out here trying to tie up all the time, asking to take up times. I've gotten more requests this election cycle to meet with people, and I just refuse. Not that I'm being mean or favoritism, but if
No.
you're the right person for the job, more than likely we already know you. And so
Right.
if you're now trying to come and get a vote out of me, we don't know you, and it's not gonna
All right.
something that you can do overnight. But
Let
man,
me.
I'll digress.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me interject. I promise you, I'm gonna give you the balance of your time. I promise.
Man, I'll leave that
Um.
alone.
Listen, man. I am not offended at all by anything that you've said, because I've always, and this is after 15 years of being pastor on the south side of Tallahassee and Jacob Chapel. They know that, number one, you are not allowed to just come in. You're not getting the platform. You're not gonna get the mic. You're not gonna get us to sign 100 forms to get you on the ballot. Like, there's just a certain principle, because I have to have clean hands at the end of the day. And I won't even say friends. I am friendly with a lot of elected officials, but my hands have to be clean. And I
Absolutely.
refuse to just give somebody the platform because they are running, or because I have to be able to tell my folks, look, and nobody gave me nothing. And it gives me the freedom to tell the truth when it's needed. Because I'm gonna check a
Absolutely.
Democrat just like I'm gonna check a Republican. You know, I'm
Absolutely.
gonna I'm gonna check anybody in their position, and I'm encouraged by what you said, because we as leaders have to hold a certain standard when it comes to, because people will use you to get access to people. If I talk to a
Amen.
couple of hundred folks every Sunday, and people know that, oh well, if I can get close to Simmons, he'll let me talk to his people. They'll call the church, they'll call the office, wondering if I can. No, 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 you can't, because I'm not going to get. That's like me giving away my members' phone numbers and email addresses. I will not do it. I believe our hands have to be clean, in that
Absolutely.
regard. Y'all, this is Man Cave Monday. I'm talking to Adner Marcelin, attorney Adner Marcelin. He is the Tallahassee branch president of the local NAACP. And I can tell you right now, before this conversation even ends, that I'm going to get more active. I never knew, I know of the work that is going on, but you and I had not had the opportunity to really sit down like this. And so I can tell you right now, my personal commitment, because I believe in you, in the spirit that I feel, in what you're doing. And I want you to know I appreciate that. So shifting
Thank you.
towards this election, and gosh, where do we start? Let's okay. Do you believe that we are going to be, first of all, do you believe that we are going to, as a community, come out in the numbers that we should? Because we didn't really come out for Hillary Clinton, and the numbers were so low. What do you think? What do you see in the pattern right now?
All right. Well, I'm going to preface this by saying the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization, so we don't
Absolutely.
endorse
Let's just talk
any
votes.
particular candidate. I just want to make sure that we put that out there. Folks will take an opportunity at anything. But what I can say is that it doesn't, for us, it matters who you vote for. But like I'm saying, really, you need to just exercise your right to vote. It's a privilege to be African American, to be Black, to be a minority in this country, and to vote, because we had ancestors that spilled blood, that had dogs sicked on them, water hoses, that died. And for you to take that privilege that you now have in 2020 and not go vote, it is just something there. That is one thing that will make me unfriend you in a heartbeat of a minute. Is if I find out you're in a circle of people and you don't vote. And where I spend my dollar, I remember I was working at Parks and Crump. This was during the last election down there in Magnolia. There was a Burger King. We went down there to get breakfast, and I saw this Black cashier at the front register, and I said, "Ma'am, did you go vote?" She's like, "No, I don't have time." I said, "Can you get your manager for me?" And I asked the manager, I said, "Hey, do you mind coming out from sitting in the back and holding down the registers while she takes 20 minutes to go cast her vote? Because I spend money here. So before I pay for my food and the food of my coworkers, I want to know where you stand on, is it important to go vote?" And he allowed her to go vote right then and there. I said, "Go, go, go, go now,
Absolutely.
go now." So again, you have to do everything else. It can't, I've been praying about not saying this publicly, so this is going to be probably the first time I'm going to let it out. But I've always prayed about saying, why do I have to convince people to go vote? And I guess I get this different vantage point because every single day I go to my office. Just yesterday, there was another African American male killed. His girlfriend was shot as well. The mom was outside there, and I'm getting the details from my office. But I'm like, with everything that is going on, the first thing that I see is a mass protest. But then I look around. I remember Tallahassee just 2, 3 months ago. We had protests out the road. There was folks lined up, hundreds. Where are those people? Where are those individuals knocking on the doors and say, "Okay, now's our time to make the difference. Now we have to actually go ahead and get the vote out." It's like people say, "Well, there's no energy or excitement around this election." Why do I have to excite you to protect
Mm,
your rights, to cast your vote, to make
yeah.
your voices heard?
Well, let me
I
answer.
don't get that. I
Let
just
me
don't. I
answer.
don't understand.
With a few more years of leadership under my belt, let me see if I can answer that. Leadership has always involved taking people somewhere that they don't necessarily want to go, or
Absolutely.
know or are aware that they need to go. Leadership is building an ark, Noah, and convincing folk that it's getting ready to rain and you need to get on it. You know,
Absolutely.
leadership is convincing a comfortable people, even an oppressed people, Israel, that Moses, you need to be free from Pharaoh's tyranny. Well, folk had to be convinced to get out of Egypt. Even though they were slaves there, even though they were suffering there, Moses had to convince them to leave Egypt. So the pain of leadership is always trying to convince folk that they need this or that they can work in their own self-interest. Unfortunately, there's going to always be a minority of folk that have to drag the majority across the finish line. That has always been, we rewrite history, right? And those of us who didn't live in certain eras will back at Dr. King's era and think that everybody was with him, that everybody, wanted to, be free. I'm sure they wanted to be free, but the effort that's required of you to establish freedom and to acquire freedom. Everybody wasn't with Martin. It was young people that marched in them streets. And their parents told them, hey, calm down. You're going to get yourself killed. You're going to get yourself hurt. But when they talked behind those closed doors and in those churches and, amongst themselves, Martin and the rest of the crew said, look, we might die today. It's going to cost us something. No different than Jesus and his disciples. He said, when you follow me, you might just get killed for it. And they signed up anyway. It's always a minority when it comes to that. And it's the pain of being in leadership. But I just thought I would offer some perspective with that. We're going to always be building an ark and convincing people to get on it. And they've never seen rain.
And I appreciate that perspective, and I will just say that this is a message that we say to people. If you want to be the ones organizing, and that's where I went. I did not let the leaders of these protests that were happening in this city off the hook. I'm glad I asked them to come out, and they all came out. They were all present. All the leaders, I said, if you can organize a protest, you can knock on doors and get the folks to come out and vote, because we need the turnout. I think when you look at the difference between an election between two gubernatorial candidates and less than a 1% determine the election result, I'm fearful because I get the calls at the NAACP that, hey, I don't know information about the amendments. I don't understand it. We need to just not only just vote for ourselves, we need to check on our neighbors and make sure that, hey, did you vote? Did you have any questions? One thing that I'm discovering here in the city is that a lot of people haven't voted, not because they don't know who the candidates are, but these amendments are tripping them up. And so they're sitting it down like, oh, I'll get more information later, and they haven't gotten around to it. And if you get to a certain point in time, I wouldn't recommend that you put your ballot in the mail. I would recommend that you take it to the supervisor of elections office, or during early voting, you can drop the physical ballot in any of the drop boxes at any of the precincts. We're stressing to people, be an October voter. I think in today's news, as I was watching the political section, they said the state of Florida, Arizona, and Michigan will determine this presidential election based on what they're forecasting in these polls. And as we're looking at that, it was even, we had a visit yesterday from Vice President Pence, and the story that came out from one of our local news stations, I think this one was WTXL, they said that this is probably one of the first times that they've come to Tallahassee, because when they were looking at the numbers of where voter turnout was and was not, this was one of the sections that they were lacking in the previous elections. And so when you're looking at that, I tell individuals, elections are tied to our way of life. Elections are tied to the judicial system that has a huge impact on African Americans. The president has the ability to appoint federal judges for a lifetime. That means one costly election can put so many of the wrong judges on the bench that can cost you dearly. What was going to happen when you appear before a judge who has no compassion, who has a mindset that they perceive you as a criminal, or they perceive you in a way when they're supposed to be unbiased and fair? They can throw a book at you. That's why we have people serving mass incarceration and harsh sentences for very little things, such as shoplifting and drugs and the crime bill that was back there. We have people still in prison for small amounts of marijuana that we take for granted today because they were sentenced back then, and you were caught and just got a simple possession charge. You must never forget that we are dependent on these court systems to give us justice. And that happens there. The governor that serves this very state, he has the ability to appoint the justices of our Florida Supreme Court. Any vacancies in judges, he appoints them. And to me, I'm just very concerned, not to say anything bad. I think we have some great judges here in Leon County, but I'm looking in the Second Judicial Circuit, I'm looking and I'm seeing the governor put judges on the county bench for a few months, and then boom, next thing you know, they're the circuit judges. And there's plenty of qualified judges that have been on the bench for years that are ingrained in this community. Absolutely. That I say, well, why not that judge and why not this judge? I think they have a lot of things. And again, these are concerns that we have. And so we have got to pay attention to these elections, and we have to get out into these elections and make sure that we vote and get to know our local candidates, hold our local candidates responsible. I'll because he's a friend of mine, I'll throw his name out there. Sheriff Walt McNeil knows that if there's a concern that we have, I will not hesitate in a minute to say, hey, I need a meeting with you. Something's wrong. We need an explanation. Give me that explanation. And so, I just think that this election here is probably one of the most critical elections of our time. The definition of what value will the Black life have in America. We have a president who is afraid to denounce racism, and in this country, he will not denounce groups that segregate itself based on racial discrimination. And again, that's very dangerous. That from the top of our government, that's a very dangerous concept. And I hope that everyone is seeing this and realizing the importance to get out and vote. And just don't go vote for yourself. I think the NAACP Youth and College President Tiffany Lofton tweeted about this the other day, and she said this most profound tweet to me. The individuals who need to go vote, we hope you realize, are not the ones on the Zooms and not the ones in these online sessions and that are reading the tweets and that are participating on these virtual platforms as we're dealing with COVID-19. Those are not the target audience that needs the education and the push to go vote. Those are the individuals who don't have access to the materials, who are living in the brinks of poverty, who don't have pretty much anything else to live for. These are the individuals that we must go out into the community and say, hey, you're important. Your voice matters. You shouldn't be living in day-to-day poverty. The government should provide for you. We need to fight harder to get you the assistance that you need, get you the health care that you need. These are the individuals that we must also take the mantle to reach out to.
So, again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Man Cave Monday. I'm talking to Adner Marcelin. He is attorney and president of the Tallahassee branch of NAACP. Great conversation thus far. And just based on what you have said in your previous remark, I was just taking some notes because I didn't want to forget anything. And there's probably three major things that I want to kind of jump into before we end this particular call. With respect to the information that needs to go out, people not being aware of what is on the ballot, not just in a presidential election year, but even, annually with the local races. I posted on Facebook the other day that the races are really local. The power is in the local. It starts local and it moves into the national. But do you think that it would be a good idea? Because I think your how has to change as people evolve and as technology affords us. We're on a Zoom right now. I think it would be very helpful for someone like yourself, and I would help, promote it in any way that I could, and I would challenge other pastors and leaders to do it, to literally go on screen, side by side, and then lay out every single ballot initiative. I'll be honest, I did not know every individual that was on my local ballot. I live in Gaston County. I did not know all of those names. And I'm like, who's this judge? Who's this? I don't know what they stand for. I felt uncomfortable voting. Do you think it would be a good idea for someone like yourself, and I'm willing to help, but to literally line up the issues graphically and say, all right, this amendment, this is what it means. I ain't telling you to vote for it or against it, but here's what it means. This judge, here is their record. Here's where they're from. Like, is that something that could be put together? Maybe not for this election because we only got a week and a half left, but just for future purposes, because I know I'm not the only one that is unaware of certain issues.
And that's the first thing I just wanted you to catch you on that question. That has already been done. The NAACP does have an amendment guide that has already been published. And we took it one step further because we understood that individuals don't have the internet and may not have the internet to get to the access to the information. So we took it into the community and disseminated it this weekend. You talked earlier about your sermon.
There's a website that has this information printed on it.
NAACP Tallahassee.org. NAACP Tallahassee.org. The information is posted there on our website. You can
Great.
download the amendments there. And I wanted to go back. You spoke about your sermon on yesterday about partnerships. And one of the things that we did also during this presidency was we eliminated it. We have three civil rights organizations, the National Action Network, the Tallahassee Urban League, and the NAACP. And while others may feel like it's a competition, I see it as more resources and more hands. So what we decided to do was the Urban League, we won't forget our Tallahassee Barristers Association. We all gathered together. We got on a call every Sunday at 2 o'clock leading up to election day to help coordinate nonpartisan activities. And we got these guys and we put them into our community. We were in Frenchtown and we covered that last weekend. On Saturday, we went into the Bond neighborhood, Florida A&M University, the side streets that covered those areas. We went into the South Side and we got the information on those pamphlets out there into those communities because we knew that those communities had the lowest turnout in Leon County history. And so we have to work in making sure that we get them the information, make everybody comfortable enough with the information to go vote. Certainly, while we wish we could endorse candidates, we just simply cannot.
Right.
But as far as the amendment, we certainly can give that. However, I will just say this. If you don't know of anybody else and you want to call and get a personal opinion, you are welcome to do that. I will share my personal opinions with anybody. I don't think that violates any particular rule, but we are nonpartisan. You're free to vote for whomever you want to vote for, but don't let the issue that you don't know the candidate convince you not to vote. If I have to go get the materials for both sides of the candidates to get to you, I can just make those calls and ensure that you receive the necessary materials to vote. But the most important thing is that you do go out and you vote and you make sure that your voice is part of the ones that are heard.
Absolutely.
We're fighting some tough times and we're trying to get more folks into the ballot system. But hopefully, like I said, we can make that push and get our community out and vote.
That's awesome. And thank you for sharing that. Again, y'all, it's naacptallahassee.org. All of the ballot information, all of the candidates, again, not endorsing anyone in particular, but the information that is needed. And you're going to have to do your part in making sure that you get informed and, taking the steps to make an informed decision when you fill out your ballot. So that's the first thing. Thank you for that. The second thing, as African Americans, we are both proud and protective of our Black leaders, particularly, former President Obama, right? We are proud and we are very protective of he and his wife and his children, but more so his legacy, what his election meant, to us as a community. I can remember it was 2008. My son was 4 years old. And for him to be alive in a time where a Black man can be president is phenomenal. We're both proud and we are protective. We're very careful about criticizing, our Black leaders. Because it's only a few of us in certain key areas. And so we don't like to be critical. But I just finished a book entitled Democracy in Black. It was written in 2014 on the heels of the Michael Brown case. And I challenge everybody to go out there and find it. Dr. Eddie S. Glaude is the author, Democracy in Black. And he dissects the Obama presidency, not completely diminishing it, but you can kind of tell, he's got a little bit of an issue with how President Obama governed and how he sort of kowtowed, in his view, to, the white establishment and how he didn't do enough to promote, the financial, the economic interests, of African American people. Now that you've had time to process, he's been out of office for 4 years now. What is your view from a leadership standpoint, and obviously as a leader of a great organization? How do you process the Obama presidency?
It's a very difficult question. I think, someone, and I'll tell you, one of my predecessors told me this, Dr. Vivicier, one of my mentors, and he was a
Shouts out
former
to Dr. V.
Yeah, he was a former president of the NAACP himself, and he gave me some great wisdom on what to expect and how to necessarily deal with the pressures of being the president. This is something that you could not have forewarned about the pressures that come with just having this volunteer job title. It's a lot of pressure. People want you to say a lot of things and go a lot of ways. You have to be very careful to hold your morals, to hold your values, to hold your integrity, and to do the right thing even when nobody is looking. At sometimes that has made you, come at odds with individuals, but you have to do the right thing. For me, I look at the Obama administration and I say, if you think that Obama has not done enough, or I should say anything for the Black community in that regard, I will say look at what's happening now and look at the rollbacks, look at the challenges to that. I've seen local realtors here. I saw a local realtor here comment on there that I, as a individual realtor, did not have a steady income stream, and I could not afford insurance. And based on the marketplace, I was able to get health insurance. And I could tell you that I came from the product of two immigrants who grew up very, very poor. And there were times where we didn't have health insurance as well. And so I understand and saw the challenges. I saw my dad go to work and work every single day to put food and to provide for a family, and had to skip out on something that is a necessity as healthcare. Now that you work for the law firm and it's provided, you see the luxuries. It's a luxury to have health care, not waiting for a condition to get bad, or laying down and you're not feeling good but you can't afford to go to a doctor. Having that luxury, I don't take it as anything. I think those laws that are put in place are not to punish business owners, but to make sure that we are protecting those, because there are some employers, believe it or not, that if not pushed to do the right thing, they won't do the right thing for their employer, for their employees. I know some business owners say, hey, I'm not in support of this initiative for the $15 minimum wage
Do you
thing, but I'm
believe that they're
saying
really gonna fire people if this goes through? Like, do you really believe that threat from the local Tallahassee business owners?
they say that they will, but here's the problem. It's just like picking fruit, which some individuals may look as a profession that's beneath them. Someone has to do it,
Somebody got to do
and
it.
someone's going to have to do it, and they're going to do it in whatever way they need to get it done. But certainly we don't. I think when you look at the masses that are being affected, it's a minority compared to the problem. And
Right.
sometimes you cannot sacrifice a minority for the majority. You have to protect the majority even when that affects the minority, and find different ways to help them. It doesn't mean that you just turn your blind eye on small businesses. You have to make provisions to help small businesses meet this mandate and to get to the place where they want to meet this mandate. Are there cuts that you can make other than payroll that you can actually pay somebody a decent wage? Because I asked the business owner here in Tallahassee this week, imagine if that was you and I gave you the $15,000 salary. I think TD Jakes preached a very good sermon, one of my favorites, and he told pastors, it was his message to pastors, and he said, I'm tired of pastors that go to church every day and they know where their paycheck is coming from. They know what's in the offering pan before they walk out the door. I challenge that pastor to switch places with your parishioners, and you take what they got during the day and give them your resources, and see how you fare out at the end of the week. See if you'll keep that same upbeat message and that same faith and everything that you preach. And that was very challenging to me, to always say, no matter how far, no matter how wealthy I get, no matter where life finds me, never forget the position of where somebody else is coming from. But back to your question with Obama, very quickly, I tell people, challenge that. I see it when it comes down to judges. There are President Trump has appointed more judges than all of his predecessors combined during the short time that he's there. These are lifetime appointments that will stick with us until these judges either die or step off the bench voluntarily. They make very rules that are challenging. We can't get straight answers from candidates that are being, I'm saying the nominee that's being confirmed right now, on what she will do with abortion. Gay rights and gay marriage is up on the table again. And again, it's just like, we look at, what did Obama do? All he just did was create measures to say, hey, treat everybody in the workplace equally, no matter what your sexuality. It doesn't matter whether you believe in gay marriage or you don't support gay marriage. You still have to treat somebody like a human being.
Correct.
You look at consent decrees, which is how police departments are taken over by the federal government and made to conform in ways that protect African Americans. We saw consent decrees. The last one under the Obama administration, I believe, was in Ferguson when they killed Freddie Gray and choked him out, and that was the last one there. First thing that William Barr did when he became the attorney general was he got rid of all of the consent decree orders and now have given the police departments a pass to do whatever they want. So if these progresses and things that came out of the Obama administration wasn't something worth fighting for, they would not be rolling them back under this administration now. I would last leave and just say this. The media is very, they report. If you want to get conservative media, you watch Fox News. If you want liberal media, you watch the other news sources. You've got to make sure that you do the research yourself to ensure that you know the legacies. Did everything that President Obama put out, was everything done correctly and done 100% the way that it should have been done without any slip ups or mess ups there? No. But when you look overall at what he's done and what we have now, it's just an effort to undermine policies and procedures. Forget about Democrats and Republicans. This is about Americans, health, life, liberty. All of that now is on a threatening. They're threatening to demolish all of that, all because, let's face it, they could not stand the fact that an African-American man was in office. Yep. And I dare question someone who doesn't agree that if President Barack Obama was in office today doing the exact same thing as President Trump, would he give the same respect, courtcy,
he
and individuals? And we
that
know
far.
that.
Yeah.
We know that.
He wouldn't have
And again, like I said, there are some individuals who are going to be rational. They're going to agree with it. They're going to do what they need to do. But then there's other individuals that they're going to sit there and they're going to make excuses and behavior to tolerate that. And for me, it's very simple. It's not about President Trump being a Republican. It's not about President Barack Obama being a Democrat. It's the common core issues that have nothing to do with politics or party politics. If you cannot denounce racism, that's a problem. It doesn't have to, you can denounce racism as a Democrat, you can denounce racism as a Republican. When you cannot do simple stuff like that, when you cannot say, hey, we have a growing issue. And I'll go back to one that's right here in Florida. There's a very dangerous bill that is being put out by the governor. He termed it the Combating Violence, Disorder, Looting, and Law Enforcement Protection Act. I tell people, now you can possibly get a felony for just attending a protest. We know that we live in a college town here in Tallahassee. We need to wake up and challenge this bill, because if this thing gets through, you're not going to be confined to a jail cell. Bail will not be set for you. It will be no more going to jail there and going out there. If you support financially any organization that put on an event where the roads were blocked and stuff of that nature, you could be assessed penalties. We have the governor threatening our local elected officials who we elected to govern ourselves on this issue of defunding the police. And I had to get in this issue of defunding the police because people want to get in their feelings and get sensitive as if they believe that what Black America is asking when we say defund the police is to leave us in a city or county with no law enforcement. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. All we're asking, if you don't understand what defund the police means, is that we want to reallocate the police budget. And if you look at most municipalities, it's the largest budget. It's one of the largest line items in the budget. What we're saying is if we can take some of those funds away, reinvest them in early prevention center. It's what we're already doing. It's the Children's Services Council, which we support. It's putting dollars into different programs and preventative programs, and we're putting them into different services, mental health services, to help the crisis so that we can decrease the amounts of lives that are lost.
And I think that's very key, because he who controls the language controls the thought. And so when they use the word defund, and whoever's controlling the conversation at the time, they can paint the picture that, oh, y'all don't want police officers to get paid, but if someone breaks in your house, who are you going to call? They don't
Yeah.
understand what you just explained, that we're talking about a shift in resources. I don't think that we need to spend millions and nationally billions of dollars on police to have literally war combat, tools and weapons. Tanks rolling down the street, and this they looking like they going to Iraq somewhere. Like that, I think funds should be shifted, as you said, away from those kind of things and more towards mental health, more towards early prevention, more towards intervention services, more
Absolutely.
towards training for police officers before they get a badge. And then after they've gotten a badge, every now and then you got to get recertified. Every now and then you got to get checked on just to make sure that you're okay. I think it's very clear that how you have explained this whole defund, because again, he who controls the language has controlled the thought.
And you have to clarify this. But and I'll leave everyone with this thought though. What's most offensive is not even this bill that the governor is proposing, but the governor had a platform and an opportunity to make a change. With the same breath that you want to penalize and criminalize people who are protesting because their lives are being taken day to day, you had an opportunity to step up and to deal with an issue that has grappled this country, which is police brutality, which is the excessive force by law enforcement on citizens. And one of the things that I have always, said, and I heard it with one of our local law enforcement officials said on the record. They said, the Constitution gives us authority to police, and I said, no, 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 no. The Constitution gives you the authority to police in a kind and in a respectful manner. No one consents to excessive force. No one's consenting to being beaten. No one's consenting to being shot and killed unnecessarily. No one is consenting to being pulled over and racially profiled. No one consents to these things. This is not what we call policing. And so the governor had this golden opportunity to come back and say, I understand and I know that these issues are going on, and I am going to implement equal legislation on this side to say, well, we do not, and let's make it clear, we don't support looting, we don't support burning down buildings. But I also say this, I've been to the protest here in Tallahassee. There have been no looting. There's been no violence here.
Right.
I can't remember the last time I seen violence in a Florida county for a death. But we're quiet, we're silent on the issue of what is being done for the individuals that are being killed, what is being done to correct anybody that's saying I was racially profiled, or in many cases, we get the cases after the internal affairs investigation is done. And then when we receive these cases at our law office, we see the findings say that the officer did something that was against the code and it was a misconduct on that officer's part. But where are the harsher punishment given to those who abuse the trust that are given to them behind that badge? It's not there. And so when you cater to one side and cater to one audience, this is the danger of politics when it plays into our government and our lives. Yeah. When you cater to one side, you leave the other side helpless. And I believe that this new bill here in itself is not going to be found constitutional. I believe it goes, it's an attack on civil rights, the rights of freedom.
Or who's fighting it right now? Like
everybody, you can pick up the phone. You should be calling your legislators. You should be calling those who are on the committee.
So there's going to be a vote at some point to either accept. There's going to be a vote at some point to either accept or deny this.
Absolutely. And you can let the governor know, hey, this is not what we want. This is not how we expect that. But again, when people are out there and they're taking campaign donations, I'm gonna call it that, campaign donations from large parties and major corporations, they're indebted to that. Law enforcement, I support law enforcement. I was a police explorer when I was growing up. Have nothing against law enforcement. No. But if law enforcement cannot wake up and see that, hey, we have an issue that is grappling the country, and it may not be every department. We have some great officers, but there are also some bad ones.
It is systemic, though.
We don't get that. This is this systemic problem, but we can't just turn our backs and say we support law enforcement and we're just going to ignore the fact of what's going on. And I've spoken to our local police chief about that, and I make I didn't mince my words in any way. I said we have a department culture in which people cannot express themselves. Just recently, I served on the Tallahassee Human Relations Council. We received an anonymous complaint that was now, because it was anonymous, they got put back on the city's jurisdiction because the officers would not name themselves for fear of retaliation. But those allegations within that complaint gave some serious rise of issues under the time when Mike DeLeo was there, and why people could not speak out. They did not speak out, and they did not stop certain behavior because they felt that they would be retaliated against. And I told the chief, if you don't get behind your department and clear this behavior, everybody in that department should be a chief. When it comes to stopping injustice, everybody is the chief. Lose your job. I don't care. If you got to stop and say, hey, man, what you're doing is not right, you need to stop it. Not only am I going to report it, but I'm not going to let it happen on my watch. Yeah. Lose your job if you got to, but lose your job doing the right thing. You can't just sit there and accept being silent as the norm and let your partner do something. I look there as we're serving the family of George Floyd, and I just look at the other officers that just stood there while the man said, I could not breathe, with officers on his neck. And now they're crying, oh, well, I didn't do it. Why am I being charged? I didn't charge. You're being charged because you sat there and watched it and you did nothing.
Yep. You are.
And so I think that we have to develop that culture within our office. And yes, we have to work in bridging the divide between law enforcement and our community. I'm not saying that we need to put everything on law enforcement, but we have to get people in the room that want to understand each other, that are not coming in there with stigmas and attitudes, or I don't really want to be here attitudes. And we have to actually get people in here to understand what it is like to be a police officer. I think Sheriff McNeil has this great program at the sheriff's office where they get people who absolutely hate the police. They got a program where law enforcement views individuals a certain way. They get in a room, and by the end of the day, they don't even want to leave from each other because they now are not looking at each other as this person in law enforcement, but they're viewing each other at, oh, this is somebody who's in our community and this is someone in our community, and we're just talking right now. They're not as bad as I thought. So I think like getting some more of those programs out there, and certainly I also met with our state attorney and I've challenged him recently. We know that we've had some protesters that have been arrested for simply protesting, but I also told them that we share fault in it. How you disseminate information like this in our community, you bear a part in what happens, because our Black men getting killed in 2020 is a traumatic issue. It's a traumatic mental health issue for our community. And just dumping the decision on a Friday and going, what did you expect? Mm-hmm. What did you expect? And so in light of that, yes, you're going to have emotional individuals. You're going to have individuals who are just traumatized that take to the streets as an initial reaction. But I asked him, is this what we want to spend our time? Because I'm going to also talk about what other individuals, I think he's come up with a fair plan. I will give him credit with that, on resolving these issues without leaving our people with a criminal justice issue. But what disgusted me most about this was we have murders that have not been solved. There are Black women from Tallahassee that are still missing. We have missing individuals in this county. And to tell me that law enforcement, after leaving a protest and anything that you did, they could have just done an on-view arrest and arrested you right there, something that they saw, but sat there and reviewed videotape and micro-analyzed what protesters were doing. It couldn't have been that serious if you didn't see it and you didn't arrest somebody right then. But you gave our department resources, time, and effort to sit there and micro-analyze what protesters did. Mm-hmm. And then go out and go into our court system, tying up resources there to go get warrants, to go pick people up. How much time and resources did you spend when there are much more serious crimes that did not get fixed in this community? Your priorities are wrong. And you need to get these priorities in check. You need to get them straight. And you need to work with our community by showing them that we don't tolerate. Yes, I saw the videos. I will leave the decisions with the grand jury based on what was done. But I also saw things from our department that also needed to promptly be publicly addressed so they know where you stand. I think we have a chief that is very fair and he's going to do things when given the opportunity. And I've challenged him there. I have not seen yet the public acknowledgement of the officer. I don't know what his race is or anything else, but there was an officer in there that was using foul language on that tape that killed Michael, and I don't want to mispronounce his last name, but I know it's Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson. That when you started watching that video, it was just derogatory language.
And
But
see,
where is the
that's the
statement?
both and. You know, I believe that there is a both and aspect to every issue that you just raised. You know, I believe that you can support police as an institution, you know,
Absolutely.
but there are some individual and some systemic issues that have to be addressed. I don't believe in the whole either or, because whether you're talking about government, whether you're talking about church, whether you're talking about community stuff, education, there's always a both and, you know, argument to a lot of these different issues. Y'all, this is Adner Marcelin. He is on fire. My God, I mean, there's not much more that I can even offer. He has clearly laid out the issues that are before us, that are confronting us as a community. Who is responsible? You know what they need to do, what we need to do as a people. And by the time that you guys watch this, we are still a week away from the 2020 presidential election. But certainly for days, weeks, months, and years to come, this is a name, this is a face that you need to get used to seeing. This brother is well on his way. I don't know what he's running for. He said he's considering politics. It's already done. It's whatever God has for you next. We're going to be right there behind you, and we so appreciate you taking the time to jump on and into the man cave. Is there anything else that you would like to say just in closing? We've been going at it for a minute now. Is there anything else that you can offer before we close?
I would just, I want to extend a personal invitation for anybody to join the NAACP. Like I said, it doesn't matter your race, your background. I don't think the NAACP is not a place where you'll feel uncomfortable. We have law enforcement. For those who wanted to, and we didn't invite law enforcement to come. They came and pulled a seat up at the table and say, "Hey, we recognize that there's an issue, so we're going to come." And we're not just going to just take a back seat. We're joining the board so we can figure out what we need to do here to make our community better. Certainly, everybody is welcome. If you needed an invitation, here it is. You are invited to come out. We're meeting virtually during the pandemic to keep everybody safe. So definitely, there's an online calendar. Click online, visit our calendar. Certainly drop in and see us. As it relates to the election, I cannot stress it enough. We are in the fight of our lives. This is the election of our lives. This election can have implications for 20, 30 years from now. Sometimes when it comes down to the judicial race, as a lifetime. You got to go out and vote. If you get closer to the November 3rd election day, please don't go and try to mail your ballot in. Make the extra effort and go in person. Be an October voter is something that we're pushing out there. Vote in October, do it early enough. But if you're getting at this point right now, I wouldn't even trust the mail system personally. I would simply walk your ballot into any early voting location or going in person and actually casting your ballot. It's important, and just remember that a lot of people gave their lives and they died so that you could have the right to actually vote and to live the life that you live. Because some of us live some pretty privileged life, but they died and they gave their rights. And please don't shame our ancestors and put a shame to our history. You've got to step up and vote. No one should have to convince you, because we fought hard to get to this point, and we're not done fighting. But we're going to only make change when you go out there and elect the leaders that are able to bring that change to our community. And so I leave you with that. Go out, vote, be the change that you want to see. Thanks for having me on.
Wow. Thank you so much. And once again, this has been another edition of Man Cave Monday. He is Adner Marcelin, Tallahassee branch of NAACP president and leader extraordinaire. Thank you all for the support of this platform. And again, please continue to share. I thank you for the comments you've given tonight, but make sure that you share this experience. This is probably the wokest man cave of all the ones we've been doing since we started. And I'm just so
Mm.
honored that you would take the time, sir, to come. I know you've been in meetings. I know you've been giving a lot of yourself in this season. So I want to personally thank you on behalf of all
Thank
of
you so
us
much. I appreciate
for
it.
the information that you share. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this whenever, wherever you picked it up. Look forward to seeing you next time for another powerful edition of Man Cave Monday. You're always going to be inspired by the different voices from A to Z, all walks of life, all different perspectives, and I think we certainly got empowered on tonight. Thank you all again for watching, and we will certainly look to see you soon.